Michael Satt, Mayor's Office at the National Western Center Office.
Great, thank you, everybody. So I think we'll just get right into the agenda. First item is an update from the National Western Stock Show, and we'll start with Ron, and then Pat, if you have any additions, we'll add on.
All right, thank you. Just let everybody know we're definitely underway with the planning for this upcoming stock show. The other things that we're doing is we're starting to recruit for employees to work the show. So if anyone in here knows of people that are interested in coming to work with us for the stock show, please have them come in. We're taking applications daily. And we're going to be having a job fair, a full-fledged job fair on the 15th of December. Also, we have Fall Fest coming up. It's on a Saturday, November 19th. That's where we're coordinating with KM Concessions, Volunteers of America, Catholic Charities, and a few others to feed as many of the homeless as we can and have them, provide them with a sit-down dinner as well as entertainment. Some things for the kids, for the school kids. There's going to be an organization out here providing haircuts, different things like that will be going on. We're still in the planning stages, but that is November 19th here at the complex, and we are in the process of looking for volunteers for people who would like to help us with that. And then the last thing I have is many of you talked about the Rock Island Railroad that put the rails in on our property where we use our cattle tie-outs by the Delgany. We have served them with orders to remove those tracks. No action has taken place yet, but they have received the official order to start removing them. Thank you.
Great.
Question.
Yep. Do we have another microphone that you can pass?
That was one of the questions that I had, knowing the construction work that's going on along that area there. How's that going to affect your parking for some of your participants in your stock show this year?
Which construction are you talking about?
Down around the railroad tracks along Brighton Boulevard there, all that's taking place back here along that.
Oh, well, you're talking about the RTD commuter rail on the west side of the, or east side of Burlington Northern. Right now we've got everything pretty well situated. We have lost approximately 250 to 300 parking spaces. Most of it is in our staging area. We are in the process of relaying out that lot. So we will lose approximately 250 to 300 parking spaces because of that construction. But that's going to be a permanent effect. So what RTD is going to be taking from us, they have already done that.
Will you be able to use the, since Denver has brought the old crusher parcel over there, will you be able to utilize that in conjunction?
You're talking about the car crusher? We actually own that.
Oh, so will you be utilizing that
Yes.
as part of it?
We utilized it last year also, as well as we're working with DPS to also use their old bus facility.
Great. Any other questions for Ron? Pat, did you have any contribution? Okay, great. Next on the agenda is Jocelyn from CSU. However, I got a call from her earlier, and she is flying back from Dallas. She's been at the Urban Land Institute National Conference, doing things that are obviously connected to the National Western Center, so she apologizes that she couldn't be here. She did share with me the CSU National Western Center Reimagined newsletter. Are you all getting this? And if you're not, if you would contact Jocelyn to get on the list. I just want to highlight a few things because I wasn't getting this email newsletter, so it's great. But so she asked me just to highlight a few things that are in here. One of the headlines is, oh, look at that. It's just kind of, did the battery just go out?
Hit it against the floor.
Yeah, just, oh, there we go. I'm just not going to touch anything.
The
Hold it
switch must be
carefully.
a little sensitive.
One headline is CSU collaborates with Denver Museum of Nature and Science to further education, and I don't know, we'll let you, Nancy, elaborate a little bit on that in just a second. Also, it highlights the free pet clinic that they did on October 15th, which I think was a great success. They did physical exams and vaccinations for 152 dogs and cats. There was also an extreme community makeover where volunteers came in from CSU and did some cleaning up of weeds and trash and trimmed trees, and worked with a number of properties on the campus. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna, if we could pass that other microphone over here, and I'm doing this just for the translators. So she just wanted you to know about that, and I think also we announced at the last meeting that CIG has been selected to do the branding, marketing, and strategic communications, and so they also let everybody know about that in their newsletter. So we also have with us, and maybe you could highlight a little bit, we have Nancy from the Museum of Nature and Science.
Well, CSU, since we have been working together on this project here at the National Western, we've been trying to kind of give CSU a way to have a presence here in town and to get to know people better than they already do. And so they've been coming to various of our events for a while now, and they very generously stepped up and are sponsoring our Extreme Mammals exhibit, which is a temporary exhibit. It's all about animals, so it's a perfect fit with the National Western. It both has kind of paleontological and zoological things. And as always, I just want to remind everyone that admission is always free for all school groups and organized youth groups. And if you or anyone in the community here needs passes, just come and see me afterwards and we'll make sure to get you in to see Extreme Mammals.
Great. If you'll pass the microphone to Michael Sapp, he's going to give us a quick National Western Center update.
All right, sounds good. So, again, Michael Sapp with the Mayor's Office at the National Western Center. So, if you all don't remember or recall, the city came to CAC a few months ago with AECOM and presented on the Econ Study 2.0 plan that really began to set the clusters of innovation around the National Western campus. Well, I'm excited to tell you all today that we do have a draft study. That study incorporates some of the points that were brought up at our CAC presentation as well as our Executive Oversight Committee meeting. And, we talk about the triangle of innovation. And that triangle really is, Colorado State in northern Colorado, then Denver National Airport in our far northeast quadrant of the city, and National Western Stock Show. And really looking at different clusters around water, aerospace, office space, where you can have this ag research study component here at the campus. And so we're excited about that study. It has kind of circulated itself around the city, but has incorporated a lot of the feedback that was brought here at CAC. I do want to make an announcement about the Econ study. We will have a public meeting on let me pull it up, because you guys are invited, and I will make sure that Liz gets this announcement so that she can put it posted in the notes. But it's Thursday, November 10th, from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. at McNichols Civic Center, located at 144 West Colfax Avenue. We would love to have you all present as we roll out the Econ study in 2017. So with that, I'll stop there, and then when we get to our procurement, I will give you a procurement update as well.
And since Drew is not here yet, and Ann, he didn't get a hold of you, right?
He did not.
He did not. And so I told him we would do his presentation a little later. If you would just pass the microphone to Armando. Oh.
Yes, our financial meeting quarterly meeting did not meet. It was canceled, so I have nothing to report on that.
And I think they're going to reschedule it for November, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, great. So,
we'll be able to get caught up on that.
excellent, thanks. If you'll pass the microphone down, AE, as we know that committee is on hold, but did you have any items you wanted to share?
Well, to keep the Events Program Advisory Subcommittee alive in spirit, which I think is hugely important, and I'm looking forward to people rising up and hopefully vitalizing that. It's been put into suspense, in my understanding, largely because there are not significant actions needed to utilize facilities. And the more formal partnerships are going to be formed, which require a lot of clarification, regulation, and forming of what that is. I do believe a lot of what is programming is going on that could be elevated to National Western Center branding with some of CSU's engagements in the neighborhoods and with the activation of some of the outreach with CIG and some of what Zoller is doing over in Globeville with some of the areas that are going to be connected with the National Western Center. So I just want to continue to be an advocate for us to realize that we may have made an error in the formation of the Events Program Advisory Subcommittee that can be corrected to the constructive enrichment of the National Western Center project immediate potential as far as rolling out content into the neighborhoods. That may sound vague, but I'd love for us to get specific on it. I think there's a lot that can be done to activate the science and math and the civic engagement substance of this, and I think that's what the voters wanted, the education component, and I don't want us to have to wait till the buildings are built. So let's keep talking about it. A few people have approached me and said, hey, yeah, that'd be great, wish I knew what to do, don't have the energy, but let's figure it out. So let's just keep talking and let's see if we can get some of the consultants that are engaged on board with some of this as well. I think it would be a good idea.
Great, thanks. I think we're going to go back down to Michael Sapp, who gave the partner update and now is just going to give a National Western Center update on some issues.
Yeah, and I was remiss in not to letting you all know that Kelly Lee wished he could be here, but he's also a part of the mayor and the state's delegation to Dubai. He's actually traveling and should be back on Monday. So he sends his regards, but the trip was to look at how we build that partnership between Dubai, Aerotropolis Airport, as well as Denver International Airport, and some other projects in and around the National Western Center. So just wanted to say that Kelly wishes he could be here, but he is on the flight from Dubai to Denver, so we'll be glad to have him back. So you heard Ron kind of give an update on rail. I'm gonna get right into procurement. So last time Kelly gave an update on a couple of different procurements that we had out the door. I'm excited to give you all an update. So for our project reporting, the company that's really going to help us really manage the different reports that we are issuing out, but also making sure that our team is aligned with RTA guidelines, but also aligned with what the master plan called for. Proud to say that Tri-Unity was selected, and so you're going to start seeing their staff join our team in Colorado State University. They are scheduled to start November 1st, so we're excited to have Tri-Unity on board for that. For Brighton Boulevard, so from 44th to County Line, we selected Wilson and Associates, and that the goal of that project was really to take design to 100%. That contract is still in City Council, but the notice to proceed should come out December 1st. And you all should know that with Brighton, you know, we are working to make sure that we have the environmental environmental work that kind of runs parallel. So just want to mention that. You heard Liz speak on behalf of Jocelyn from CSU, but our communication, marketing, and branding RFP, we did select CIG. We are excited about that as we begin to look at 27 and some of the different engagement opportunities, communication opportunities to have this firm on board to really take our communications and engagement and marketing and branding to a whole nother level. We're excited about them being on board. A couple of pending RFPs just to be on the lookout for. Program management. So we actually today we had received a request for qualification from several different firms, and the goal of that is to have selection really by fourth quarter of 16, with notice to proceed starting first quarter of 2017. And let me back up for a quick second. well, I'll keep going. So that's program management. For campus placemaking, one that I'm really excited about, and I know a lot of folks here who were part of the National Western Center Master Plan, the campus placemaking really takes the master plan and really takes it to like a 2.0 level, but you're thinking around public realm, regeneration. That RFP or program scope will come out first quarter of 2017. We're excited about that. We're going to really lean heavy on the CAC members and all the different stakeholders as we begin to reimagine what the campus will look like. For the transportation mobility for the National Western Campus, we did select Walker Parking, and they're scheduled to kick off December of 2016, and the program manager will be Chris Proud. And for those that don't know, Chris Proud was on NDCC, assigned from Parks and Rec. He recently accepted the position to be the executive or be the director of mobility for NDCC. So you'll hear more about that when we get to our Washington Street report out. So I said a lot, but if anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, let me know.
Any questions for Michael?
Yep, here, I'm sorry. It's easier for,
Sure.
thank you.
Could you just give a short version definition of what program management is relative to the entity that's being selected? Just so people know what that is, and I'm a little unclear about it.
Yeah, so, program management is really working with the equity partners that are going to be on board, making sure that if we're doing regeneration work, making sure that the program is aligned with the principles outlined in the guiding plan for the National Western Center, whether we're talking about ag business or ag or econ study, making sure that we have a pipeline that really addresses pre-apprenticeship programs, but also workforce development programs. So they're the entity that's going to really help manage some of the programming once we get that up and running.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have one.
Yeah.
Michael, could you just clarify, is Chris Proud part of the NDC staff, or did he move from that, assistant director position to this mobility?
So Chris Proud is he is now with Public Works, Denver Public Works, but he's assigned as staff support for NDCC.
And if I could
Karen.
just mention, I'm Karen Good with Public Works, and he's really, the position is the same position he had with NDCC, but for Public Works instead of for Parks and Recreation. So he's still on the NDCC team,
Okay, good.
just with a different role as to what projects he is working on, and he's a great resource because he has such vast experience with NDCC and transportation.
Great, thanks.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions? Yep.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. Yep.
My question basically is to, a couple of meetings ago, I had a question in reference to some of the acquisitions that were taking place from the National Western, which are affecting the 7-Eleven and the grocery store located on Brighton Boulevard. And the question that I had then was the fact that what is being done, as far as with the National Western program, to address the issue of the neighborhood there losing two stores in that area. And when I put that question to Kelly Lee a couple meetings ago, he said that that was something that you guys would look into, but yet I haven't heard anything about it. So my question here, I'd like to go on record, because I think, for every effect, for every action, there's an effect. And this is an effect of something that we're going to lose in the neighborhood here. And so I would like someone to be able to address what's going to take the place of these two stores that are there, because as far as I know, there's nothing that's going to replace them, and that's going to affect the neighborhood drastically. So if you can't answer that during this meeting, then I would like us to have this answered during one of the other meetings that we're going to have in the future.
Great, okay, I will write that down as an agenda item, but Michael, do you have a response?
In partnership with NDCC, both Anna Jones, who's the executive director for NDCC, and Kelly, in partnership with the Office of Economic Development, their Housing and Neighborhood Development Division, are all working to address some of the food insecurities in Globeville area, Swansea, or zip code 80216. I can tell you that we are meeting regularly to really begin to look at how we address the land acquisition and the effects that will come when 7-Eleven is under control of the city. I'm happy to take that back to Kelly, and maybe we can see if we can bring one of those entities to the next CAC to give a report out on it. But we take it very serious, and we'll take that back, but we'll see how we can get someone here to kind of address your question.
Great, thanks, and I wrote it down as a possible agenda item because I think that would be a great presentation, so I just put that down as well. Okay, any other questions? Yep.
We're going on along in a good clip, and I'm not sure where this fits, but I think it's in one of the updates. But last meeting, I requested, and it might be posted and I missed it, the mailing of what was 112 and then I think became 140 agricultural related businesses that Kelly reported and had been reported at the Executive Oversight Committee a month ago were solicited for input into how they might want to become engaged with the National Western Center. And they had reported that there was a sort of, there was a cluster of responses. And I had asked for that to be disclosed. You had mentioned that you could post it. Mm-hmm. And I want to be real clear that my interest in this on behalf of this is that going forward, I appreciate the reaching globally and traveling around and meeting people all over the world, and I want them to send Paul Andrews to Australia to look into the rodeo and the poets with the rodeo in Australia to bring them back as part of this too. But I'm very concerned in a heartfelt way with the gravity of the international exploration, the large ag, the gathering momentum going back to Washington DC, Dubai, Singapore, wherever, to muster relationships with partners in international agriculture. And I would really want this to be more transparent into the neighborhoods and into us that are trying to understand the industry and the changes and what the vision is of this being content for evolution, wisdom forward. So I'm very uneasy as a person just out in the weeds here with the sense that a mind trust is developing kind of off the table of the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee. I honestly, and if I take flack for this, that's okay, I do not trust that deals are not being struck based even on tacit expectations. I just would ask for us to be informed more, and it's part of the education we deserve and the experience we deserve for stepping up and volunteering because we care about the content of what this project is in terms of creating neighborhood-based, replicable solutions to the agricultural and environmental and water and et cetera challenges in the world that locally solved can be globally beneficial. So I just ask that we dignify this process with more transparency, more engagement, and I appreciate that there's going to be this forum November 10th to roll out some of the agricultural study that's happening, but really I think we should be more engaged by invitation, by opportunity, many ages, people that are aspirational to get into CSU from the neighborhoods, all kinds of things could be happening right now in content. This is one of the reasons I'm very frustrated in a sad way, not an angry way, not a why me way just because I'm the EPS representative, but I'm sad that the EPS, the Events Program Advisory Subcommittee, is not active. We don't have strong advocacy for the content activation in the intellectual exploration of this project that could be happening now. So somewhere within that, I hope something can be grabbed onto with people that can really bring this stuff out into the field and into the sustained and existing institutions that we have that are devoted to education and into agriculture already and to the growth of local agriculture economy. We can't wait.
Great.
Thanks, AE. And I did post that list with the meeting materials from the last meeting, and I will get it onto the documents page. I think I intended, somebody post those for me, does an update to the site. I intended it to be with the meeting materials and the document section, but I'll move it to the document section
Well,
as well, so.
And it would, yeah, I mean, I went wherever I thought was logical, and it
Right.
is true, it's cumbersome. Every time you have to go search for something, it would have been nice to get a courtesy, or even just to send it out. Or
To know that it was posted. Yeah.
But the larger, that's the smallest part of it. I hope somehow people grasp what I'm saying with the larger, and we can activate that kind of discussion. Thank
Great.
you. I appreciate that.
One
Okay,
last thing.
thank you. Yeah?
Along the same lines, at one of the earlier meetings, we talked about the industry study that National Western is doing. And I expressed my concern that the local agricultural businesses have not been included. And at our last Elyria-Swansea Globeville Business Association, I asked all of the members whether anybody had been contacted by the consultant to find out to get some input from them. This includes even large companies like Purina, and to be able to proceed in a way trying to design an agricultural campus and not include the critical people who've been here for years is not acceptable, and we'd like to know what the status of that is.
Michael, did you want to comment on that, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention. It's always been our intent to make sure that we have an inclusive process when it comes to our ag businesses, especially folks who have paved the way for this region. I don't know who you spoke to, and I know that we've done our due diligence as far as trying to notify as many ag businesses here in the metro region and across the state. But if you have a list of folks that you've been in contact with that have not, been notified, we'd love to talk to them. I think we're in a great place where we're still in that information gathering phase, and we want to hear from them, because at the end of the day, nothing is final, and we want to make sure that we have an inclusive process. Maybe you and I can talk offline and figure out who we're missing.
Great. Any other questions, comments? Okay. We'll move on to the NDCC update, which is kind of the main presentation of the night, and we'll ask Karen Good to join us to talk about the Washington Street project. And
Can we get a,
It's right here.
oh.
yeah, you have one up there, and
Great. Happily, I'm not just bringing me, but a whole team of folks so that we can keep you entertained. So we'll be trading off, so it's fine. Let's see, hopefully this will wake itself up.
oh,
I've already hit it twice.
hold on. I wonder if. Sorry.
So
my
I'll-
password, I think.
I don't need, while we're figuring out the graphics, the PowerPoint show, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Karen Good with Denver Public Works. Thanks, Michael. I have Laura Durate and Lisa Zoller here with me. We are part of the project team for the Washington Street corridor. We're really excited to be here tonight and to let you know that we have finally gotten our consultant under contract and can move forward into reaching out to the community. Thanks. Reaching out to the community and really beginning to engage in the planning process. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm not going to move. There we go. I'm going to
Processing.
step very carefully around the equipment. It seems to be a little buggy tonight. I hope that everyone here knows where Washington Street is. Many of you probably took it or crossed it to get here. Okay, it's still working. I don't trust it. Our corridor study really just goes from the river, and I'm just going to point on our graphic, to the Adams County border. However, we are using the connection to 38th and Blake as our area of influence, just to give an idea. We are looking at connectivity and a lot of other things, so knowing what destinations, where people are coming from and going to, it's critical to include the 38th Blake and Blake Station area. We're going to talk about a little bit more about the study area, the consultant team, as well as the city team, why we're studying Washington Street, looking at past and current studies so you understand the context that we'll be looking at, coordinating projects as well, the scope elements, implementation, the overall process, one of the most critical elements of the overall process, the community engagement piece, which is why we brought Lisa tonight, and the overall schedule. Big picture, we've got myself, I'm the project manager, we've got a great team at the city, including folks from not just Public Works and NWC-CAC, but the National Western Center, as well as Parks and Recreation and Community Planning and Development. So we've got a wealth of knowledge and expertise. And I'm going to pass the mic to Laura so that she can talk a little bit more about the consultant team. But I do want to mention that as part of the selection process, it was not just, the selection panel was not just made up of members of city staff, but also a member of the community. So wanted to make you aware that we're really trying to be inclusive and bringing folks in the room that were on that selection panel, including myself, Michael Sapp, let's see, well, he's not in, right? So, Dave Oletsky is our secret, not so secret resident who was part of that panel. So, there you go. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Laura.
Thanks. Would you like to no, I just Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Laura Alvarete. I am with Matrix Design Group. We are an integrated planning and engineering design firm, and we are the lead consultant for the Washington Street study, which is, so we are, as a part of that, we're the management team, so we're responsible for the various different task leads that need to happen to make this a successful project, and as well as making sure we stay, within the scope that's been agreed upon, the budget that's been agreed upon, and the schedule. That being said, I've never been on a project where that actually all stays the same. So, right, we know that this is a moving, right? There will be pieces where times when we'll go faster in the schedule process than what's dictated in a perfect little schedule, and times when we'll need to slow down and make a breakout group and have certain conversations maybe with the community that we didn't anticipate just because it's hard to anticipate. So with me, I've got a fantastic team of consultants, and I've got also just say, backing up to the management team, is I'm an urban planner and designer by trade, and the deputy project manager, Matt Buster, is an engineer by training, and we have worked side by side on a variety of projects, specifically over the last 4 years. And the beauty of that is Matt likes to think in very technical, detailed ways, and I like to think in very broad, visionary, planning ways, and my ear is a little bit more bent towards the community. And so between us, we make a really terrific team of being able to balance those two components and kind of overlap them and integrate. So we hope we do that again here on this project, which we're very excited about. So we think there's 5 really critical components, really 4, and this is really just in case we run into some other things, some issues that we need to look into in some detail. So first is land use and multimodal connectivity, and I will be leading that task as a planner, and that's kind of just pulling things together, but looking specifically at land use and how it relates to transportation, the width of the road. The other really critical piece is the multimodal connectivity, and how do we think about this street within a large multimodal network. As well, can we just show? The piece I want to just demonstrate is, well, this is Washington Street. Can everybody see that? Sorry, except for you, Michael. We really think that it's important that you pull out a little bit and examine, go west. of Washington Street, not just a block, but we should really think about this whole system. Equally, we should come in and think about what's happening and how this connectivity comes in to National Western, and how we connect back into Elyria-Swansea, back down to this portion of Elyria-Swansea, and back around. So we think it's that multimodal connectivity and that broad planning sense is really important. The next piece is urban design. We have a great landscape architect by the name of CPG Studios. They were responsible for the landscape that's on Tennyson Street, if you've been up in North Denver. It's a very much of a main street. It's happened in a very organic, that redevelopment's happened very organically. And it just has a nice feel to it. It's very walkable. It's very bike-friendly as well. And I think that is something that we heard through the RFP process that the community is very sensitive to, about how do we make place. And so I think Heather Noyes and her team is going to be very critical. The other piece is that she's also working on Morrison Street, and I think that in terms of a bigger street that's dealing with volumes is also, has that component here in Washington Street, right? We've got volumes of truck that we'll have to deal with, and cars as National Western comes online. So we think she's got a perfect combination of understanding those complex streets and bringing kind of that sense of beauty and order to streets. Next is public engagement, and I think all of you know Lisa, and I don't really need to say probably anything else. She's been terrific in the community and works at a variety of different levels with the community, and she'll speak. We're going to get it. We have a slide just to spend some time talking about that public engagement that we have for the study. And then civil transportation, as I mentioned, Matt will lead that piece up, and we'll be looking at storm drainage as it comes across Globeville into the Platte. We'll be looking at traffic along Washington and the intersections as well, and how we make that connectivity across Washington from the neighborhood into the access into the river. And then we have survey, environmental, and railroad. We probably are going to need to do a little bit of survey work along Washington that's pinpointed. We have a survey internal to Matrix, and so we'll utilize them to try to kind of clean up some line work to help us understand the road work specifically. We have environmental also within Matrix. If we think there's something there that we need to look at, we have them on staff to be able to assess some of those issues. And then Sue Grabler has been in the railroad community for years and years, and has been working in the community as well. And so again, I think it's worth taking a little bit of time to get some expertise from somebody who knows and understands the railroads to give us some feedback about how we safely cross that railroad. Oh, I should also mention, I would love, please don't treat this as a presentation. I don't think there's an issue with all you guys interrupting, but feel free to stop and ask questions. I think it's better if we have a dialogue.
You don't know what door you're opening.
Yeah, I do know because I know you, and so it's fine, right? I think everybody will understand it better if there's questions along the way, as opposed to trying to hold the question and go back to it. So I should have said that earlier. So just here's what kind of leads us as we start down this path, which is we know from the Globeville neighborhood plan that it's a transformative project. It is critical to the community. The community spoke very loudly. We understand from the Globeville neighborhood plan that this is one of the top priority projects. We know that National Western is coming online, and that so change is coming. And so change will come in the form of transportation, as well as in the land uses that are along Washington and around Washington. And so we want to begin to set the stage and the expectation of how that street needs to feel, how cars should behave in response to other modes of transportation. So we need to do that early. And it's also a way to begin signaling to that there is catalytic redevelopment opportunities in certain areas around the community as a response to beginning to redefine what Washington Street is. So as I mentioned, this will become, there will be entrances from the two bridges coming over from National Western, connection to I-70 and Brighton Boulevard,
Also, you're connecting back into 38th and Blake. Adams County, right, they've got a little bit of a different version or vision of what the street should feel like north of 52nd, and so we will engage with them and to understand that. And then again, is what we read in the Globeville neighborhood plan is that there is some ideas about keeping elements of a main street or creating elements of a main street on Washington Street. And so, yeah, and then really kind of then once we set that vision and those goals and objectives, then it's really kind of getting into some design and technical engineering.
One of the things that I don't see.
Mickey? Thank you. I think it is.
One of the things I'd like to see included on there is a connection to the river and to the parks. It may be broadly included somewhere, but if you're putting those as line items, I believe that it's critical that they be part of the line item. Also, you talked about it, the urban design element, the housing, how it connects to Brighton Boulevard and those streets. I mean, I think it deserves a line item and somewhere in there.
Yep, so I would just include, like within land use, I'm including housing in that, and then urban design. Yes, and
this is not the all-inclusive list.
I understand that. I just want to make sure that as we're speaking,
there will
it
be some
gets...
pieces, there will be another slide that shines a little bit more light on that. Yes.
As a business owner along the Washington Street corridor, we have a concern, and there's numerous businesses. We've had meetings about Washington Street, numerous of them, long before this came into play.
Yeah.
And one of the main things is a lot of the businesses that are along the Washington Street corridor feel that they're being left out of this whole situation. They don't know what's going on. They know something's in the midst, but they have no clue about what's going on in communication with that. I've done my best to try to bring them in on what I could bring them in, but we haven't had a meeting on this in almost a year. And so at this point, I guess, as I am in support of the neighborhood plan and having residents be a part of this design process, but I do feel that we need to have some of the business owners. There's a lot of businesses that own a lot of stuff along this area, and they need to be engaged in what's happening because this is their livelihood and this is going to affect the way it's going to take place. And that's Washington Street's like a tree, the tree trunk for us, and everybody feeds into that. And so it can very seriously affect some of the businesses along that way. And I want to make sure that as a part of this study, we're not just informed what's going to take place there, but we are a part of what's going to take place there ahead of time.
So you threw Lisa a softball, so that's great. We are we hope to be cognizant of that. Can you hear me on that?
I can hear you.
That one's not.
So, this one's not working? No, it's not. Okay.
It's turned on.
So we're hoping to be cognizant of that, and you'll see in the slide that we have specific meetings with the business community. I will also say that we have yet to start. We have a notice to proceed, probably as of 2 weeks ago, meaning our contract was signed with the city, or by the city, and so we are just underway, so you should not feel like you are missing a meeting, because we have not. This is, this afternoon we were at the EOC, and tonight we're here, and this is really the first entree we have of announcing this. So.
Just a quick addition, we are going to work at getting a skeletal website up in the next week or so that there is a point of contact for folks. As Laura mentioned, we really are just getting started, and we're really excited, but we have not had the chance to put every last piece together. We are going to, I'll save it for Lisa, because she's going to tell you our great public engagement plan, but also very open to additional suggestions above and beyond what we have planned.
So if everyone's ready, this is just a quick slide. You know all these plans, right? Starting with Blueprint Denver, that was in 2002. And then, of course, National Western Center Master Plan, that both Beth Vogelsang from OB will be on the team as well as I will, and then the neighborhood plan. And of course, right now we're reworking, or the city is reworking Blueprint Denver and a number of other plans. And so we will be touching base with them and making sure that there's alignment in there and that they're seeing our progress and making sure they're reflecting the outcome of this study. So there's bunches of other, as you probably all know, there's bunches of other studies happening right now. This is the master mobility area plan that's ongoing right now. We will obviously need to coordinate with HDR, who's the consultant for this, very closely, because they're thinking about transportation, and we're thinking about transportation and road widths. In addition to that,
Laura,
yes.
before you move off that slide.
You want me to go back?
No, this slide right
this
here.
slide? Yes.
I just want to take the opportunity to power that up a little bit because, I just want to take the opportunity to power this up. This is the slide for those that are here astral traveling, a full view of the Globeville neighborhoods showing all 4 borders. And to me, this is one of the most key coordination references. When you say that, as you did earlier, that you as a company, as consultants, want to look not just at Washington but to the west as well, I feel like it's really important that the entire neighborhood as an organism be looked at in terms of wayfaring and along with the multimodal within the context of the larger studies for traffic and that kind of thing. And I feel like we need to keep saying this. There was one NDCC response to an exchange on email around the East 47th Avenue in York prospects that went out that made the statement this last week that the bicycle paths on East 47th are absolutely not related to the National Western Center plan. And I just kind of want to use that as an opportunity to point out more comprehensive thinking. Technically, there are different budgets, different planning lines, and different flows of project implementation. But the fact is that part of what an advisory committee like the CAC does is help us remember that all of these things are related, and how we feel and move and can access our businesses, our homes, our amenities in the neighborhoods has to do with this comprehensive mobility management plan that we're trying to aspire to, some of which has to do, a lot of which has to do with how the environment is built. So I see that slipping sometimes as we go from project to project. And the park access that Mickey's talking about, the connectivity to the parks and the connectivity to the different neighborhoods from within the park, it's going to have to be a flowing system. And I just want us to have the concepts of flowing systems. And we have in the interior of the neighborhood, East 45th Avenue is very much a historical Main Street. We need to always mention that because that was always mentioned in tandem within the neighborhood plan regarding the concept of Main Street. There's many businesses on the interior that are struggling and want to thrive. I don't see Washington Street myself, even though I have a little fledgling business on a main beat repurposed building in Washington now, as a exclusive trunk. I understand that, but I also think that it's better to look at it as a more, I like this root system of aspen trees myself, many things springing from a common root system. So, and then we've got the Fox Street area over there. We want folks there to feel like their neighbors, not just stuck there. They are in Globeville. So anyway, I want to put those on as concepts that have to do with implementing a real neighborhood organism and that can, as far as economy and connectivity.
Yeah. So, and we'll work closely with this plan to make sure we're integrated.
It's a great map.
Okay, so let me just mention a couple other studies. Let me just mention a couple other studies that are happening. Heron Pond Master Plan is going to be starting soon, and Matrix and Zoller Consulting is also on that team. So we're actually starting to coordinate as consulting teams with the project managers at the city about how we can try to look for ways to not just inundate you with meeting after meeting after meeting. So we'll get some thoughts together and see how those work and try those out with the community and adapt as needed. Additionally, there is the campus plan that was mentioned earlier that'll be coming out, and we'll probably have some interface with that as well. And then the Army Corps of Engineers looking at the South Platte, restoration along the South Platte. So Vicki, to your point, and one of the things that was stressed in the proposal, in the RFP and in the proposal, was making sure that we're utilizing this existing infrastructure and that the community is being able to reach across into the river. So I think that's it on the. Oh, and there's a parking and transportation demand study that is happening as part of National Western. So that definitely, again, plays into what will be happening on Washington Street. Okay, seeing no hands. Right, so this is a little bit more into the scope elements itself of what it is we're going to study and how we're going to work as a team. And so, listing here the multimodal connectivity that AE mentioned here, but really focusing on bicycle, pedestrian, transit, right? There's bus routes on here, the vehicular, and I would add in here also truck volume, truck movements, and then access and parking will be critical as well. Then again, this connectivity to the river and access to the river, which right now is very limited and kind of out of sight, out of mind. And then we'll look at cross sections. What we'll create is a series of, well, I'm not going to get to it. I'll get to that in the next slide. But cross sections, right? So we'll kind of slice the street into, cross it and look at what the different options are, present some alternatives to the community, get feedback, do some technical analysis, come back to the community with that narrowed down. And hopefully we'll be on the same page so we can move that forward. We'll get through conceptual design, which is usually at about 10% of what would be typically a construction document. So there will be, at least 2 more phases past this study that we'll really drill down into, exactly what is that, what's the width of the curb and the gutter pan and details that would probably bore me and most of us here. But so then continuing, we'll also, again, as I mentioned, look at storm drainage as that moves across Globeville. And then end that with, well, as we have a preferred alternative, we'll be able to provide a rough order of magnitude cost estimate, which is important for the city to begin thinking about, okay, now I've got in my site, I have a rough estimate of how much it's going to cost. And I can start creating the lasagna of how many different layers am I going to need to create of funding to be able to make this implementable. So the scope, kind of the process that we're going to use is we think there's different components to the street that need to be thought about. We think that there's this section between the river and I-70 is different. The intersection of 45th feels very different than the intersections further north. And so and then you get into a different section north of I-70, potentially a different section up here where it's more heavily warehouse. And then you've got a transition zone up here with Asarco and Adams County. And so what we are thinking about is creating ideas of character zones for each of those areas so that we don't just spread peanut butter all the way across this corridor, but we actually think about the detail and some of the character that's around the street to begin defining, and it might define the road width differently. So we will start with these character zones and then move into conceptual design alternatives. So what does that feel like? What is the character? What's the responding land use? How do those intersections work potentially different? Especially if you've got intersections that are bringing are a gateway for National Western or people exiting from National Western. We want to think about those differently. Engagement at the community, which Lisa will speak about next, will be all along this process, which I'll show in a moment. And then from these, I missed the urban design principles and tools for streetscape that really began looking at, I think there's opportunities for really thinking about the street as public realm. And it's oftentimes people talk about the right-of-way and they assume it's just for cars. And I think we really need to change our thinking about that. And I think we need to say it is part of the public realm, and that means it's a place for people and strollers and elderly and coffee shops. And so I think we need to start thinking differently. So I think this urban design component is going to be really helpful in that. We'll select a preferred alternative with the community as part of the community process. And then we'll get into some early action items for the project. And we're actually hoping to start doing that, be able to identify those in the first third of the project so that we don't have to wait a year and then come up with projects, but start to identify what can we start changing now to begin to show change and positivity on this corridor. So this is a graphic of kind of what that process is. It's three. I think about it in 3 phases, right? We're doing lots of analysis in the first phase and defining those core character zones. We're creating these cross-section alternatives, like a number of them for each of those character zones, testing them, and then coming up with a preferred alternative. And all the way through this process, we've got, we're testing this and talking with you all in the community about what you like or don't like, and how we begin to create the right alternative at the end. And then, as I mentioned, thinking about funding, implementation, and then phasing of it. But none of that is possible on the technical side unless we're good with, we do well with community engagement.
A big goal of ours with the community engagement is to really make sure throughout this whole thing we're trying to continue to build trust and to be inclusive with the whole community.
Good luck.
We're going to work really hard on that. What we'd like to start with is we realize we need a whole bunch of different levels of public involvement. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And so we want to start off, probably in the next few weeks or so, identifying individual interviews that we can do with key stakeholders and key groups that we can meet with and say, okay, so what do you see are the hot issues that we should be paying attention to? And how do we best engage the community that you care about in your particular group? And to really help develop a really thorough outreach process from hearing what you feel is important so that we can start from the beginning with hearing the concerns. We want to make sure we have meetings with the business community because we do recognize it's a residential as well as a business community. We want to do on-site activities. We don't want to rely only on the fact that people have to show up and meet us where we're at. We want to make sure we're going to people to make it easy for folks to tell us what they're thinking. We will make sure that we're in touch with our district council person as well as both of our at-large council members throughout the process. We want to form a community working group, which I think we'll be able to get some of those folks identified through those initial interviews that we do with folks, helping identify key leaders in the community that we should make sure that so that we have a real good cross-section and a real representative group that's working with us throughout the process to help tell us if we're off track, how we get back on track. For the sake of transparency, public meetings are always a good thing to make sure that we have. We have heard folks in the community in the past say that they don't like just the open house format. They feel like there's not the opportunity for them to be heard in a group. So we're going to try real hard to come up with something that works, that's open, so that families can feel like they can come and go and make it workable for their families and their schedule, but also so that people in the community feel like they have an open forum for speaking in front of the group and being heard in a broader context. So, and then for folks who really want to make sure that they can interact the best online, at 10 o'clock at night after the kids are asleep or after they've had a long day of work or whatever works for them, we'll also have website and online surveys so that people can really participate in a lot of different ways. And genuinely our goal in all of this is to make sure we're checking in with you and other folks in the community throughout this whole process to make sure you feel like we are hearing you and that we're developing our process along the way to fit what you need. So I hope I do get good luck in moving forward, John. I hope it works.
Any questions for Lisa?
I have just a comment that this is, I guess it's directed more maybe to NWC-CAC or to the city of, it'd be really nice if there was some simultaneous action along with the planning process, because I think that's what gets frustrating to community members is going to lots of meetings talking about something that's way down the road. So if there could be any immediate, even if it's like, you know, short-term solutions or painting on the sidewalks, or, you know what I mean, but things that can happen more immediately also. Just a suggestion.
I just want to mention that, Nola, you just identified one of the key reasons that we selected this design team. I'm going to toot their horn for them in case Laura wouldn't. But one of the interesting elements that set their proposal apart from others was that they said exactly what you just said. They said, we need to build trust with the community, and we want to identify early action items that can happen while we are working on the project. Laura mentioned that before, but implementing some things. Looking for grants that would help where maybe there isn't a funding opportunity within the city, but looking for funding opportunities outside, and partnerships with businesses and neighbors, and just looking above and beyond the standard to find ways to implement while we're in the planning process. So that was something we heard loud and clear. I think that's something that, again, raised this team above some of the others and really excited people as an opportunity to be more engaged.
So I'm going to turn that into a pitch that if there are any organizations that you are aware of that has funding opportunities, I'm not looking at these in nature and science, but I am. There's kids programs or ways that we can begin engaging, right? They're simple that we can kind of leverage off of things that are already in place. You really don't have to answer, I'm just poking fun. But that we can begin doing those things. We've got our scope is set for the technical work and what we've laid out. But we are happy to work now, starting next week, with organizations that might have little projects or programs or small funding opportunities to begin start showing some of that difference and people thinking about and kind of reclaiming that street. So I'm very much open to that. You can email, Karen's email's at the end of this, but you can email me as well.
John?
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Excuse me. We have a situation that is going to be somewhat tenuous at best. You have my personal knowledge, 50 years of experience of bad behavior on behalf of the city and some bad behavior on part of the neighborhood. I don't want to belittle your effort here, but I see some real holes in, you make reference to community engagement.
Keep going, 2 more pages, John.
Three spots there. And that's well and good. If you were dealing with, please don't be offended, an upper middle class white neighborhood. It's not. We have a different situation in Globeville. You have the element, and Mr. Sapp, don't be offended because you had nothing to do with it, and you're trying hard to do the best you can. Some bad experiences with the city over the past 15 plus more years. And trust is going to be crucial. It's going to be the most important thing we have to work with here. You're going to have to do a little bit better than meet with the business people and community engagement. Vern and I can hag out our differences, but we will come forward in a united front. And we won't allow the city or any other agency to come in and pit the business people against the residents. We need to have something a little more, with a little more clout than just community input. And if you don't do it, we'll do it. And I just believe in laying everything on the table. And I got to put 50 years behind me, and it's done. It's over with. We got to go forward. And this is the first opportunity I see for this to happen. but it's gotta be done in such a way, excuse me, that you don't piss the neighbors off or the business people. So, yeah, we got a lot of work to do, and we're willing to work with you, but we're not gonna let you work us.
I hope not.
No. Please don't even think, and that's good, you did some good work here, you know, basic planning concept and all that. But you gotta do better what you got there with the community and certainly with the business. And otherwise, it's just gonna be not another 50 years, I'm not gonna be here that long. But I can sure as hell guarantee you that the next 10 years, there's gonna be some rough sliding if we don't get this thing started on the right foot and get it done right. Thank you for all the effort that you did put into it, and I hope you made a good choice in the group that you did pick to do this, because it's gotta be done. And I don't know of anybody in the neighborhood, residents and business people, that are not committed to doing it. But it's gotta be done openly and honestly and upfront, lay it on the table and let's get going. We're not gonna agree on a whole lot of things, and I'm sure that comes from your point of view as well. But I think I can speak for people along Washington Street, that they're willing and they know that something's gotta be done.
So thank you for that, John. And I think when we sat down to think about whether or not we were going to pursue Washington Street as consultants and what the team was going to be, I think the first thing we thought about was that I've heard you speak to that point before through National Western Master Plan and some of the other activities up here. And what I have taken from that, from your insight, is that it's about trust. And so we are here, I think, in a very genuine way to recognize that we're some of the first steps forward, right, as you said.
And Trump didn't help by wanting to build a wall either.
Well, I got family on both sides of that wall, so.
But it is trust. It
is trust,
Yeah.
and we came at this I said a moment ago that none of this technical stuff matters if we don't have the community's trust, if we don't work with you. And that's one of the reasons why we thought about developing this, what we're calling the community working group, because we don't just want you to, I don't know, steering committee just sounded like we were just going to show you some stuff. We actually want to sit down with a pen and paper, with a map and trace, and talk about what is important to the community, right? And not just how wide should it be, but what are the issues in the community, and how do we translate that into what this street's going to be? So I hope you give us a chance to try to show that we can work with you to come up to the right solution, because I really mean that we start from a basis of what do we do day one to start working to build trust. I know we have gone out and we did some work with AE's group with Goldville Cares, and just trying to get to know the community and on her back to school program, and just doing simple things like that so that we're not always asking you and just having communication about the project, but we're actually going into the community and saying, what are you about? And what is this, who are the many faces of the community? And so hopefully we can continue to do little efforts like that maybe don't mean that much. I get a lot out of it just because I see so many different faces that I'll never see at a public meeting, that I'll never get an online survey from, right? But I see these families in a different way than I will ever see them at a public meeting that says, give me your opinion just on the street. So hopefully that helps.
And Nancy has a question back here.
Well, it's a question comment, and I have a property. I'm a commercial business owner on Washington Street, and also part of Globeville Civic Partners. So part of the trust piece, and it doesn't have to do with you, but it has to do with NDCC, is about the money. And a lot of us have put tons of efforts and hours into many many projects, and it hasn't gone anywhere. And we're always waiting for the money, where's the money going to come from? Money goes to other projects. So that is really a big piece, and so that's more directed to NDCC. And also transparency. about money, funding, what monies are available, because we know that monies are assessed to projects, but then they're not funded. So that is a big piece of the trust, I think.
So implementation. Actually, yes.
And implementation is something that is critical, and we're using the model that we used for Brighton for Washington Street. They're very different contexts, but the idea of making sure that we're working together on a common vision for what Washington Street should be that works for the entire community, the business community, the residential community, commercial community, pedestrians, multimodal, everything. With that, then we, as Laura mentioned, we get that big picture idea, okay, this is what the project is, this is how much we need to find funding for, here's how we can be innovative and break phases up differently, or find, you know, that silver bullet of funding that comes together like it has for Brighton. So that's something that we'll be working on, thinking innovatively as we're going through the design process and working with the community on that. But we need to get to that question of what it is we're building, and that's also goes back to the trust building of let's try to find some small things that we can do while we are engaged in this year-long planning process. And I just gave away your schedule a little bit, but we're at about a year-long planning process, and we really hope to have some at least small-scale implementation during that. Maybe it's a demonstration project, maybe it's adding some bus benches, maybe it's making improvements of curb ramps at one of the intersections along the corridor. But we want to look for those so that we are working to realize that vision. And Michael, I don't know if you want to add to that at all in terms of the bigger scale of what NDCC is doing. I know from the Master Mobility Plan, we're looking at all those projects that AE mentioned in that larger context map of NDCC and working to prioritize them so we can pull off things that we may have operational budget to complete, but we need to know what needs to happen first, second, third, so that we can start working on that. It's essentially we're at that challenging point where we've done a lot of studies and we've gotten a lot of feedback and a lot of engagement, as you all know, because you've been there. And now we need to figure out how to do all these things. And one of our managers said, "You just gave me 300 projects. I can't do 300 projects. I need something that informs me as to what needs to happen first, second, and third." So that's part of what the Master Mobility Study is doing, and that's obviously just the mobility piece. There's a lot more in these neighborhoods that's happening beyond the mobility, but that's one of our starts. And we know it's challenging, and we know it's frustrating, and it's frustrating for us too. And we appreciate that you're here now and that you're still engaged. You may be frustrated, but you're here, and we need you to continue to be here because we're hoping to start. Brighton is an example. We're starting to make some implementation actions. We just had the groundbreaking 2 weeks ago for Brighton. But there's a lot more that's happening. And Michael, I don't know if you want to add. We're working hard, but it's not easy.
Well, and that's fine. I mean, and I understand that, but just like this piece here, hiring the consultant, I mean, you have money spent, and I think we need to be able to see that at every step along the way. That's what I'm saying.
AE, I think,
Was Michael gonna
Michael, did you want to say anything, or?
I mean, again, I think, you know, NDCC was created in 2012, 2013, and I mean, I would love to really show you the progress that has been made in this zip code in those 3 years, and really fact check what we've said in plans and what we've been able to implement. These neighborhoods are one of the hottest neighborhoods in the city. I can't go anywhere in the city really and say neighborhood plan gets adopted and you're immediately going to implementation. And so I would love to, you know, not do this right here, but I mean, you know, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there, and really get to AE's question. But Nancy, you know, I respect you to death, and you know, I would love to talk to you offline. Oh, well, you know, I got a lot of love for you, so. But let's take that offline and really fact check it.
AE?
First of all, I want to just reinforce one thing with Matrix. Over 2 years ago, when the National Western Center Master Plan was being written, Matrix was a major participant in a neighborhood event we had that some people may remember. It was a cleanup event, but it was also just kind of a get-together event. And one of the greatest things about it was the crew that was on the machine that was hauling stuff over in Elyria refused to go back to Argo Park to meet the mayor when he came by because they wanted to keep working. It was an all-woman crew, and Victor Pan, who had contributed that equipment, said, "I'm not hiring men anymore. I'm going to start putting women out there. They don't even stop to go to the bathroom or anything." So Matrix has a long, has been out in engagement, and the continuity was there with the Globeville Cares event in a very personable way, in a very egalitarian way, and Zoller has participated over time and has been very open to conversations. So I'm an advocate for people knowing the consultants. I've never been happy with going to these city or CDOT meetings where people say, well, I'm with the city, and you question them and they're with consultants. We need to know the individuals because, frankly, I'm going to start looking to the consultants for a lot more than the city personnel that are overworked, understaffed, and have a lot of concerns beyond Globeville, Larry, and Swansea. I think that this is our tax dollars that are coming into implementation. So I just want to say that. And as to Globeville Cares has preceded just about everything in the planning process. It is a truly residential organization that the acronym is knowing, accountability, responding, engaging, and serving. And it has been the group that has lobbied, has effectively worked to get stoplights in, to get safety things in, to get all kinds of things happening. And I want to just say this not as a plug to Globeville Cares. I'm not to be credited at all for this. It came out of a youth program, out of street kids, and some of the great people in Globeville that have been preceded me. But I want to say that I really hope with the engagement that we do recognize that it isn't just the people that have been showing up that are important. It's the general raise of civic engagement. There were between 300 and 400 people, depending on who you ask, that arrived at our Argo Park celebration this past August 13th, and I can tell you a rough survey and following up with folks, 80% of the people are unfamiliar with what's going on. There has been divisiveness because of agency and organization interference in relationships in the neighborhoods. We want to repair that, and I want to see the consultants broaden the participatory approach to this. And so I want to work with that, and Globeville Cares wants to work with that, and I think it's a very important thing for you to get direct contact with a broad plurality of constituency. And lastly, I appreciate seeing implementation, but trust and verify, and I'm not interested in small projects. I appreciate as an artist the interest in art and that kind of a thing, but if we're just dealing with pictures and bus stops and a few little this and that's to me not what the dual timeline is that was first discussed in the Globeville planning process, which is we don't have to wait for certain things to be implemented that are the interweave of increasing the quality of life now. And I'm certainly not one of the people that suffered for generations in these neighborhoods. And people say, GES is a hot place, everybody's paying attention to it. But you know what? It's all about people not waiting another generation for the satisfaction of benefiting from what the neighborhood should be. And there's many people that can speak to this more than I, but I'm not interested in a few little token projects. I'm interested in seeing out of the neighborhood plan an understanding of how we get into the operating budget. Brighton was an area that passed neighborhood plan, and then what was it, $26 million is rolled out. I think there are some inequities, and I think that we really need to look not building trust through a series of small events that show presence, but show the interweave of we can deal with the truck wayfaring and get that taken, or wayfinding and get that taken care of along the way as we do this. There's lots of things that have to do with the quality of life immediately. So I just want to put that emphasis on, and that there are prioritization possibilities coming out of the neighborhood plan that I think really could improve the quality of life pretty immediately.
Okay, if there's no other comments, you're not, you don't have to try to read this. You got it in your packets. It's still maybe a little bit blurry, but just as the overall point is, you know, you've got the various tasks on the left-hand side, essentially the course of a year across the top, and we think it's going to take us about a year to get through this process and come up with a preferred alternative.
Here, Mickey. It's just easier for the translators.
I know we're not into funding this project yet, but we had a bond issue about 8 years ago. Elyria, Swansea, and Cloveville got 0 out of that. Are you working on a timeline and in connection with the city so that this project could potentially, in whole or in part, be funded through that next bond issue coming up within the next 2 years?
So it's an excellent question, and I don't have an answer to that question.
I think we can.
So we're looking at a lot of different opportunities for funding, and bond could potentially be one of those. So we're looking at everything that's out there.
I know you're looking, but timing is critical, and unless you have a package that's ready to go in time for that bond issue, we're never going to get on there. And I'm just saying that as we look at this timeline, we're asking you to work with a timeline that will fit within that next bond issue.
So I appreciate it. So we'll take that into account, and that's something that we have been thinking about as well.
There's, Mary Beth Sussman has the schedule on her Facebook page of the 2017 bond measure. That might be on a lot of Facebook pages, but some input sessions that are scheduled. That gives an idea of the timeline.
So lastly, if there's any comments or further questions, follow us. Like Karen said, we'll get a website up and we'll distribute it. Liz, if we can get it to you,
You bet.
we can distribute it to this group. It'll be like, look for it in the next week or two. But in the meantime, Karen's always available, or I am, but you got Karen's.
And if you can find my contact information on a wide variety of projects on the city webpage. One of the easiest ones might be the NDCC Master Mobility Plan. While you're waiting.
Great. Do we have, yeah, thank you for
Thanks
being
so
here.
much.
I think you guys got some, the beginning of a lot of great input,
Yes.
which is what CAC is always useful for. So are there other questions for these guys, or did everybody, I mean, we kind of did questions along the way, so I wasn't expecting very many more. Okay, great, yeah, I think it was great. So we have one more item on our agenda, and I had put on here that, and I was not here last year at this time, and so I don't know how we dealt with this. Maria, when she texted me and let me know that she was unable to come tonight, suggested that she wanted me to ask you all if we wanted to combine the November and December meetings so that we would have a meeting and then a little bit of a social time following the meeting. Perhaps not doing the November 17th meeting and then doing a December 15th meeting followed by an opportunity for all of us to, you know, kind of mingle together and chat in a social environment. We would most likely do that here at the National Western, although we could look at some other locations as well. So how do you guys feel about that? Do you want to have a meeting in November, or do you want to just combine November and December and we'll do a joint meeting? Do you know, Pat, I wasn't at EOC today. Did they make a decision about that?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. All right. So is there, I want to get a sense of the group here about that. Let's do this. If you want to meet on the 17th and the 15th, raise your hand.
Well, can we discuss it a little bit?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I just have a question.
Yep.
I just kind of want to know what's at stake in the city budget process, because I know that the decisions are being made. I don't know what is on the table as far as public meetings and being briefed for some of these things. Myself, at the Executive Oversight Committee, which I'm not on, but I just attended today, I was very interested to hear, and Pat, I don't know if you want to comment about this, the National Western folks have done a reevaluation of the mission and some of the, you know, I found it very interesting. And there's some things I feel like we could get some orientation. I'm hesitant, and last year it kind of got discombobulated. This was planned, and then it sort of petered out and fell, it didn't quite happen. So anyway, I just want to express those concerns. I'm not one for too many meetings and everything, but I really feel like I'd like to get some kind of refreshment with the partners, the MOU partners, the capital partners, whatever we call them. There's a
The
new-
equity partners.
The equity partners.
Yeah.
If we could, I don't know, I just would ask the group if we can put some kind of a focus on it in that direction, so we're all on the same timeline and have a sense of forward motion.
And I'll throw something in there about that. So, I mean, we could have that be the focus of a December meeting if you wanted, or if you want it to be in between. But I think as we come to the end of the year, I think that we could combine the meetings because I'm not sensing, EOC's agenda was fairly light today compared to other times. And we're trying to just make sure that we cover everything from EOC or as much as we can in this meeting. So, Mickey, I'll let you.
My understanding is that there's a meeting on issues on the bond issue, what goes on there, preliminary meeting, on December the 7th. I think December the 6th. I think we need to have a meeting before December to be able to talk about what we would like to see on the bond issue for Elyria, Swansea, and Globeville.
Beyond the NWC?
It's December 6th at Bruce Randolph. And I can send you that flyer. And Mickey, I think that might be a really great idea.
Is that beyond the scope of the National Western Center, GES in general?
It's all the issues
Because
that
that could
might
be
go
another-
on that people would like to see on the next bond issue.
Because that could call for a broader meeting than a CAC meeting.
I think
Well,
I
at
might
least
agree.
it's a start.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, there's an option for, because we do have the neighbors and neighborhood residents that are on the committee, and then we also have the community partners, but they are all from GES. So let's just get a sense here and see if, I think we could kind of banter it around for a while, but I don't know that we're going to get any further. So are you okay with me just getting a little straw poll here to get a feeling? Okay, so if you want to have 2 meetings, the 17th of November and then the 15th of December, raise your hand. So for 2 meetings, as opposed to 1 in December.
Well, what about one in November?
So you want to just do it in November and not December? Okay,
Yeah. Before the bond issue.
before the bond issue, okay. So that's also a good idea. How does everybody feel about that? Do I have any objections to that?
Is the 17th the only date because of Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
What about the 20, after
The
Thanksgiving?
28th is 17 and, let's
That'd
see,
be
the
the
24th, and then we'd be into...
That's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's Thanksgiving. So,
And what's the first Thursday in December? Is that too late for the bond? That's too late for the bond.
right, I think that would not, I think it doesn't hit quite right.
That is the 6th.
That might be the night of that meeting, so. So is everybody okay with that? Do we want to do December 17th for a meeting? Yes?
I guess I'd say yes, but would like to get some reassurance of the agenda to get it focused and even know about prep work, and should we put on the agenda, because this is kind of the line that, with due respect, what John Zapian's talked about a couple of times, numerous times, about the general issues within the neighborhoods and then the National Western Center. I mean, is this kind of like the CAC is kind of doing a little collaborative thing with the neighborhoods to see how we can combine our thinking on what might be CAC or National Western Center ideas for leveraging the National Western Center presence for helping the neighborhoods possibly have more gravitas in the 2017 bond measure. I mean, I'm all for that because I think there's linking things there. If we could have some advanced strategy in this context, I'm all for that because there's things that could be done with Heron Pond. There's things that could be done with the connections. There's things that could be done with loop buses. There's lots of things we could talk about. So anyway, I would come to it with that hope.
Okay.
Liz?
Yes.
I just don't think that this body, the National Western Citizens Advisory Committee, should be talking about the GO bond. I would really lean on some of the RNOs, some of the nonprofits that are at the table to have those, or the business association to have those conversations in those venues and stick to the topics of projects, programs that are related to the National Western campus. I mean, we talked about placemaking, we talked about some of the, the comms, marketing, branding team that's going to be coming on board. I just think that that's the appropriate place to have those entities come here. I would, again, I would lean on the folks who have a voting privilege here, but I would just vote to not have the GO bond as part of the CAC agenda in November. I would lean on the nonprofits or RNOs here to have those things there.
I totally disagree. I think it's been the issue with this whole committee that basically the focus is only on what you're doing at National Western and not looking at the larger community and the impacts. And I think if we don't do it here, when are we going to do it? I don't think we can rely on other nonprofit organizations. These are the citizens of the community, and at least they should be able to have a voice and be able to talk about what the needs of the community are. This is what happened in the last bond issue. We got zero money out of that whole bond issue. And I think that as many times as we can discuss it and as much pressure as we could put on to get our needs met, we need to do that. We need to meet. We need to talk about it. We need to get the community involved.
AE, did you have?
Yeah, I absolutely would not deflect something to the primary conduits being RNOs and nonprofits when we're talking about increasing the participatory breadth of what we're doing and trying to understand the possible mechanisms of related funding. I will claim ignorance in knowing how these bond measures work, and I think that the National Western Center has been given very generous resources through our various initiatives, but I do think it's an absolutely valid and awareness-raising conversation to talk about how all these things converge. And if part of it is to bring to that meeting that we're having here an explanation of how the bond measure functions and how citizens access this and how we prepare proposals for it, I think that's absolutely reasonable. And if there are ways that things that are going on in the neighborhoods can be strengthened by the mutualities, I think it's a really important exploration.
Oh, John?
Yeah.
Well, I have to say that I'm a little, I guess, confused here. Because, again, I'm back to that thin line. And I can see what Michael's saying. I also understand Mickey's position because, we have been left out of the budget process. But I think that one of the experiences that I've had in budgeting is that if you don't have something concrete to put forward, backed up by some facts and figures, we're doing the proverbial thing in a windstorm. I don't know of any specific, other than the general things that AE spoke to. I'd like to see some budgeting for our neighborhoods. We need a damn advocate planner. We take planning from teaspoons at a time from the city planning office, and there's a lot to be desired. But when you're hungry, you'll take what you can get, and that's what we did with the planning process. But there's some things that can come right out of the mayor's office. If he really wants it done, he can just order it done. But I agree with Mickey's position as well that somehow we got to get a clause into the budget process because Mickey, I know how you feel. Think how I feel for the past 50 years.
I mean, we're talking about Washington. That isn't
Yeah.
a National Western project.
Yeah.
We want to get it in the budget.
But
We're talking
not
about-
ready. I'm not ready to go.
We're not talking about amounts, John. We're talking about concepts. Because there's a long time before they decide how
Yes, I
much,
understand
when.
that.
And I just want to make sure that at December 7th or December 16th, somebody doesn't say, well, why didn't you bring it up if that's what you wanted? I just want to make sure that we bring it up and that this group think about what we would want out of that bond issue. I mean, as I said, I mean, I think it still gets in my craw that we had a bond issue 8 years ago. There was not a nickel spent in this area, which was the most needed area.
And this is coming up in 218, is that correct? The next big.
So, yeah. So what we are doing now as an administration is we are having input sessions all across the city. We have 6 GO bond meetings. First one starts on November 15th at Montbello campus. And then, you know, we have one on December 6th and December 8th. The one on Tuesday, December 6th is in Council District 9 for Global area Swanson, but also for different parts of District 9. And then there will be a refinement stage where we'll take the input that we received from those the meetings that we have starting on November 15th, and then we'll refine them, and then we'll take them to the mayor and city council, and then we'll have another community engagement process, and then from there we'll refer it to the ballot, and the voters will vote for November of 2017.
So can I make a suggestion, just kind of sitting here and listening to everything? I understand that there are people that definitely want to have input on the bond. And so the problem is, I'm afraid that if you wait until November 17th to begin planning and really coming up with items, that it's not going to give you enough time to kind of formulate them and gather what you need. So let me just finish, Mickey. I think it would be great if we could have a subcommittee of people from this group that start now and meet and talk about those issues that they think are important to try to get on the bond. And then that group can present some of those items as an issue on the November 17th. I think if we come together on November 17th, and we do have an obligation to make sure we're staying in sync with EOC about the issues that they're presenting. And I don't know what's coming up for agenda items, but I want to be able to make sure we get those agenda items. So how would you feel about, we can do one of the sign-up sheets and just have a group of people that will talk about things that they want to get on the bond, and then come back, and then the entire group will be able to get a report out and perhaps give a little more feedback. Does that sound reasonable? I'm just really worried that if you're very serious about trying to get into the bond process, that to start on the 17th is not going to be productive and for you in the process. So why don't we take the sign-up sheet and we'll plan a meeting on the 17th, but not on the 15th, and we'll also include after the meeting on the 17th a social time. Is that okay, John? Yep.
When is the meeting for the bond input?
It's in December. Well, there's some
couple
starting now.
I mean, so.
When? Bruce Randolph.
December 6th.
Tuesday, December 6th. But again, I mean, you guys are absolutely welcome to go to the one in Montbello on November 15th. And also to note, the mayor's having his cabinet in the community meeting on Saturday, December 19th at Cole DSST. And so, I'm sorry, November 19th. Thank you, Nancy.
That's the District 9 one.
And that's the District 9 one. So make it to your point. I mean, if you guys have a subcommittee that can meet, and by the time you refine it at the next CAC, you all as a coalition of residents can then go to the mayor's cabinet in the community meeting on Saturday, November 19th at DSST Cole, and voice your ideas for what you want to include in the bond. And so I would strongly encourage you all to attend that, and then after that, you all should go to Harvest Fest at the Stock Show, because that's the same day as well.
Great.
Where is that meeting at?
Yep, it's Saturday, November 19th at Cole DSST.
Right. Did you have?
Yeah, just an agenda suggestion. I think as the CAC, when you say coalition of residents, there are residents here, it's also a broader scope just for people.
Right.
But also, as far as that meeting, the CAC meeting agenda.
I'm listening,
Okay.
I'm listening, yeah, I'm just walking around.
I do feel like it would be helpful to have maybe a report of the, somebody, I don't know if, Michael, you can help me with with the financial profile of how the National Western Center is, just a refresher on how the National Western Center is spending the money that has been directed, the overview of the financial, and I know that the COFAS meeting is going to be reconvened in November, but I don't know if that's before this or not. But also the update kind of to refresh our sense of substance with the equity partners and how the National Western is advancing in response to the new partnership in agriculture with the new mission statements and that sort of thing I was mentioning, Pat. I think that I'm feeling an inconsistency of presence. I really appreciate the Denver Museum of Nature and Science has been real consistent. The Denver Museum of Nature and Science actually stepped up in working with Globeville Cares and through a contact that Michael Sapp activated to bring RocketWorks to our August 13th event, which was really successful. It had a science component. It was fun. It was really great. And so I think that there's a need to bring out the substance. So if we can combine the agenda and also, I really strongly feel like there's ways to leverage the National Western Center programmatically with some of the stuff that can happen in the neighborhoods even now. So I hope we can talk about that.
Okay, I'll just tell you what I have and then. So the three items that I've gleaned from this meeting that you would like to see on the agenda is, Vern, the update on the grocery store issue, which we'll take back to Gelling and certainly get an update on that.
And some discussion.
And discussion about that as well. Just maybe an overview of the bond process, a quick overview, but then with a report out from this group that we're passing this sheet around right now. And then kind of just a revisit with the equity partners about where they are and just getting us kind of coming back and saying, okay, 1 year later, where are we? And is that the right sense?
Well,
Yeah.
I want to know. I want the expression of the dynamic partnership within the National Western Center project as a project, to quote Steve Nally, nested in the neighborhoods.
Right.
I want it to be not just I want it anyway. So more of a what's the relationship and how is that coming out of the master plan?
Okay.
More dynamic than just.
All right. Would you shoot me an email with that so I can? That way I can get. That way when I go to the partners, they'll understand what we're kind of looking for.
I'll do my best to anything I can do, but
Great.
I'll do my best.
Okay. Yes.
I have two questions. The first one is to Michael, and I'm not yelling, I'm just, because I don't have the mic, and I don't need it, I can talk about it. You brought up about a meeting to go over the financials, the economic study 2.0, you said it was going to be in December or something. Is that the same group that came to a CAC meeting some time ago that said that so that is the same group? Are they going to be at this meeting at some point to recap what they brought to the table the first time?
I had a conversation with Gretchen about that today, and I think that they will come back at a point. I think it'll probably be after the first of the year.
How soon after the first?
My guess is, we'll try to get it on the January agenda. So.
Okay, as long as it's soon.
Right.
I mean, it has been quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
Some of us were discussing it, so we wanted to check on that.
Okay, so that's.
It hasn't been released.
Yeah, the report has not been released yet, and so that's why we'll wait until it's released.
Okay, and then the only other thing I wanted to say was you mentioned about a newsletter from CSU.
Yes.
And you said that we could find the site and sign up. Wouldn't it be maybe a little more expedient if you just gave the list of committee members to each of the partners so they could put us on their list for their newsletters?
Yeah.
We can opt out if we want.
Yeah, I will do that. That's what I wanted to say to Jocelyn today, but she said most of the members she thinks are on the list, but I'll just send the list over and ask her to put it on.
I
So.
looked and I didn't see that I had gotten that.
Great,
So
yeah,
that's
and I hadn't either, so there we go. So All right, so we're gonna shoot for the 17th, not the 15th of December. We'll have a social hour after. I've collected agenda items. Are there any other issues for the good of the order, as Terrence Carroll would say?
For the good of the order, yeah. I'm just noticing that people are signing up on this subcommittee in affiliations that are not their formal affiliation, being on the Center Advisory Committee. So I just want to be really clear, and yes, it does matter, because it makes it real clear what our roles are in what we're bringing to the table. So if we want it, but I also like the opportunity of expanding it to demonstrate that we can do that as well.
Well, and certainly there's nothing in your guidelines that says that you can't, I think you could welcome some people to join you to discuss them, and I don't think that would be a problem.
Right, but
Yeah.
let's just be clear.
Yep, got it. Okay.
I have just
yeah.
a quick announcement.
Okay, you bet.
I just noticed the other day that on the 5x5 pass, which is the pass that goes to kids 0 to 5 that are in Head Start or Early Head Start or PAT and HIPPY programs that we have at Focus Points, they get this 5x5 pass that allows them to enter cultural facilities for free. And I noticed that the SAC show is on that 5x5 pass this year, which is super cool. So thank you. I don't know who did that, but that's awesome. I mean, we have over 100 families in PAT and HIPPY that can now come to the SAC show for free. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic, great. Okay, any other issues?
Yeah.
I can, if I don't, it also is posted under the agenda items, but you can have an extra one, and I'm happy to copy some more and get them over to you if you need me to. Okay, any other issues? Great, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks, guys.